At its absolute peak, it was doing about $1.5 to $2 million a week in sales. You don't need to come up with an idea that's never been done. You need to iterate on something that already exists. The biggest prohibitor of building a successful, financially free life is the mindset. At the end of the day, you can have the best restaurant, the best law firm, but if you don't have eyeballs, you're gonna fail. Thousands and thousands of people, I'm gonna go buy my dream home at 24 years old. I'm like, don't do that. But if you want to build real wealth fast, it's through.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Robinson Review. We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Robert Croak. You guys probably know him as the founder of Silly Bandz. He's told this story quite a bit, but we're going to get into a couple different avenues today that maybe Mr. Robert Croak has not talked about before. But without further ado, Robert, thanks so much for joining us on the Robinson Review.
Yes, definitely excited to be here, man. I really appreciate what you're doing for people.
Well, let's kind of, before we go all the way back, I want to put this into perspective. I mean, you created one of the biggest toy crazes of a generation.
Correct.
Right? And at its absolute peak, how big did Silly Bandz get?
It is at its absolute peak. I think we had 3,200 global employees just for Silly Bandz, not my other stuff. And how big did it get? It was doing at that time about $1.5 to $2 million a week in sales. So that big.
Wow.
And it was crazy. And we did it all through our Ohio office where I came from. We still have that office. And then at that time, we had, an office in the UK. We had a sales center in Las Vegas because I had a house in Las Vegas. And I'll be honest, it was madness because, everyone always, paints the picture after they exit that it's all rainbows and unicorns and it's all easy. I lived in the mud for 2.5 years. I mean, it was insane. It was so crazy that I was renovating a house when Silly Bandz was first starting to blow up big. I was renovating a house and could never go to it. We were working around the clock to keep everything together. So one day I had a meeting, I think it was a Thursday, with my construction team, because I had the construction company at the time.
Right.
I said, I need the upstairs, which was our game room. I need that to be an apartment by Monday. So I said, sorry guys, but you got to work all weekend. And literally they just took this big warehouse space. We put in a kitchenette, a bathroom. We curtained off 4 different areas. We moved beds up there. We did everything. So me, at the time, my fiance, my 2 managers, everyone moved in. And I said, this is your home until we figure this out. It was a long 18 months of all of us just crashing in this warehouse space because we literally, it was a worldwide phenomenon. And so to be able to handle that type of scale, everyone thinks it's easy, but we couldn't hire fast enough. We couldn't do deals fast enough. And it was just absolute chaos for about 18 months. And that was 2000, like right in 2010 and 2011.
Okay, got it. So during that time period, was there a specific moment where you looked around and thought, okay, this has gotten insane?
Yeah, I remember it vividly. And it's crazy because when you started talking to me about doing this show today, I was like, what is the moment? And I can tell you vividly.
Yeah.
And people and entrepreneurs, you're going to love this story. And it is absolutely real and madness. So we were operating in the beginning out of my buildings. So we had the t-shirt shop, we had the laser shop where we were doing the custom silicone bracelets. We were doing all of the sales in my buildings, but there was a big, beautiful warehouse right behind me that was completely underutilized for some little company. And I'd known them for 20 years. So I walked back there. I'm like, hey, is there any way I can lease this side of your warehouse, 2 separate buildings? So you're not really using it. I need it, and I need it today. The wife and the son knew me. They're like, yeah, sounds great. Yes, we'll talk to the husband. We'll get it all done. I'm like, please, I need this by Monday. So a couple days later, the husband comes over. It was on a weekend. He's like, hey, man, sorry. I don't want you in my building. I don't know what to tell you, but we're just not going to lease you that space. So I got pissed. So I looked up who the building owner was, thinking it was them. And I was like, man, maybe they're behind on their taxes. Maybe I can buy it out from underneath them. Found the building owner's name. And he's like, yeah, they haven't paid rent in 10 months. He's like, if you want the building, I'll evict them tomorrow. I'm like, well, I don't want to necessarily evict them. I just want this side. So I literally on Monday got the paperwork drawn up. Within 7 days, we closed. And I said, you can remain in your space, but I'm moving in. I went over, we changed the locks, we did all the things, and we moved in. And we started moving our slowly, but we got over there. So we had space because we were delivering so much product and we had so many employees. So I'm walking through the old building as we're doing that. And my manager says to me, he was like my right-hand man, my global manager. He said, Robert, at this pace, we're going to be going through 1,000 cases a week in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We have to get that set up. We don't have anywhere to put product and we don't have anywhere for someone to work. And I was like, there's no way we can do 1,000 cases in 1 week, because that would be 576,000 units a week. He's like, hey man, it's going to happen. We need to prepare. So it was all hands on deck. We were going to let those people operate in the one side of the building. They ended up moving out, so we had the entire building, which was phenomenal. And so we started operating there, and it got so crazy during that moment, during that time, that we figured out with UPS, because we were flying the product in, they said, this doesn't make sense anymore for us to come in, unload the product, you repack it, and then us come back at the end of the day. It takes too long. So we used the alley, and the police allowed it between the two buildings. They would literally come in the morning, just drop the trucks. They would let us unpack and repack them. So when they came back, they just picked them up and they took off with them. It was hours and hours of efficiency and saving time. But that was definitely the moment where I had the oh shit moment. What are we going to do? And then after that, we grew to like 3,000-4,000 cases a week of sales.
Wow.
And it was just madness. It was the coolest time for me after the fact, because during it was a stressful mess, because
Right.
you know, 18 hours a day, probably we were all working 7 days a week. And so yeah, it was a really fun time for me, but crazy for sure.
Gosh, what an amazing
Yep.
story. Well, where did the idea come from? I think I saw this somewhere. Were you in China when you thought of this?
So basically, and this is a testament, and it's really happening a lot in consumer products now. You don't need to invent anything. You don't need to come up with an idea that's never been done. You need to iterate on something that already exists. We see it right now with Graza, with olive oil, putting it in a squirt bottle. We see it with Drizzy. We see it with Groons, all these companies that are just taking a product that has existed for years and decades and repackaging it in a way that's more convenient or cooler, or that really works. And so for me, we had done millions and millions of dollars with the Livestrong bracelets for a few years, from 2003 to 2008, and then it started dying down. And I was actually at a product show for something else. I walked by a booth and they hand me a sample of these little tiny shaped rubber bands. I was like, what are these for? You know, and they just said, oh, they're just rubber bands. And I'm like, well, you can't do anything with them. You know, you could use them as a rubber band, but nobody's going to pay extra money for a utilitarian product like a rubber band. So I walked around with this thing and I went back and I was like, we have to make these bigger and thicker so they can be bracelets. And so we went back and we started, you know, going the route of naming it. What's it going to be called? What's the brand going to be? And that's how Silly Bandz was born. And I already had the experience in custom silicone bracelets, and we'd done really, really well there. And that was it. We came up with the name. We started marketing it. It was very slow because, of course, you know, the world likes to make all of us look like genius heroes, you know, when something goes big like that. You know, every founder that's ever exited, they always, almost all of them paint the picture of they had this great master plan that played out. That's all bull crap. You know, most founders that exit and have $100 million, $500 million exit or whatever it may be, generally figured it out because they've been throwing stuff at the wall for years and they finally had one of their ideas stick. And Silly Bandz was my biggest idea, and the one that did the best. You know, and now if I have a product that I launch and it does 5 or 10 million in sales, people don't even notice. They're like, it was a failure. And so I've always said, and I stick to this, that to build real wealth, we love real estate. You and I both do. Everyone should own real estate. everyone should have money in the stock market, ETFs, all the things I talk about. But if you want to build real wealth fast, it's through building a consumer product or a technology, period.
Yeah.
Because you can go from total obscurity with two buddies in a garage to $100 million in sales. Virtually, it feels like overnight. It's probably more like 18 months or 2 years. So that is why I still do consumer products. And it's crazy because Silly Bandz are super viral right now. They're back. They're huge. And I'm glad that I never sold any of the company over the last 15 years.
So you still own 100% of the company?
I do as of this moment. There is a big, massive announcement that you're going to chuckle when you hear it. The press release will probably go out in about 2 weeks. And you're going to be like, no way he did not tell me what this was. But I can't. I swore I wouldn't tell anyone till the ink is dry and everything is done. But it is the coolest collaboration partner and probably one of only 3 people on earth that I would even consider letting go any equity, because I've had a lot of offers from different firms to buy Silly Bandz. But you're going to love it when I announce it. So you definitely call me or text me the day you see it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yep.
So you said something about Livestrong. Were you behind the Livestrong bracelets?
I was not. I was a triathlete at the time, and we were doing some stuff online. And that was back in the day when doing online was tough. Right. And after I did a race, I went back to my bars, and that was when I owned all the bars and nightclubs.
Yep.
Everyone kept asking me, yo, what's that yellow bracelet? What does that mean? You know, yada, yada, yada. And I told them, and it went on for like a month. And I'm like, I got to do something with this. And it's the craziest story of my life. I literally cold called the Livestrong Foundation. I called there, cold called. Girl called. Thank you. You changed my life. I never got her name. And she was like, oh my God, you should definitely make these bracelets. We get 1,000 emails a month of people that want to do it for their own charities. We're not a manufacturer. We get them imported, whatever. And she gave me their factory's information on a cold call. I literally just called the number online. So I reached out to that company. I Skyped with them the next night. And they were like, yeah, we'll make these bracelets for you. That would be great, because the Livestrong bracelets were sold out worldwide. So we literally launched custom silicone bracelets because I wanted to make sure I could own SEO, because I figured that would be the search term everyone would use. It ended up being right. So we launched custom silicone bracelets 18 days later, even after everyone in my office said, this is a dumb idea. It'll never work. Who's going to order these bracelets? They're a glorified rubber band, whatever they said. And we went on to do, millions and millions and millions of dollars in sales. We helped everybody from Blue Cross Blue Shield to cancer societies to churches, schools, sports teams. And that was the big start in silicone for me.
Right. Amazing. Yeah. And how long? So that was how many years then before Silly Bandz was that?
That was 2003 to 2009 were the custom silicone bracelets craze. And they still sell to date. I don't run that business anymore because it was a race to the bottom by the 3rd year. All these little, crappy companies came in, and they're all trying to race to the bottom on pricing and bad quality. And so we just ended up abandoning it. I still own the mark, and I still get emails from time to time from companies that want more of them, but we just don't do that product anymore. So it was a good 5-year run though, for sure.
Wealth building, real estate should be included in everyone's portfolio, but to really kind 100%. To really kind of, this day and age, especially with AI, you read about all these kids that are building an AI product over the weekend and selling it for $1 million on Monday. I feel like now with AI, we are in the gold rush, right? It's almost like back in the 1800s, everyone, discovering gold for the first time. We're going to look back at this time in 20 years and think, man, remember when AI was just starting? Like how many millionaires were created and companies were created, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. You just have to have the tenacity and the willingness to take a chance. We're also going to look back. We're also going to look back in 5 years, and we're going to laugh about all the people that pivoted from being a crypto expert to an AI expert and they never talk about their failures, you know? And
Right.
so I think AI, everyone's afraid of AI. And then sadly, the people that run from it are never going to outrun it. And I
Right.
think the best thing people can do is figure out how to get ahead of it, whether you're investing in it, whether you're using it, whether you're integrating it into your businesses, whatever that may be. I think it's most important you get ahead of it because you can't outrun it. It's just like back in the day when Blackberries came out and email just became a thing. All of the CEOs that didn't latch on to the internet and email and all that and learn it, they all became dinosaurs and irrelevant because they didn't get ahead of it. And I think right now, AI gives you this wonderful situation because you can learn as we fly. As I'm speaking to you right now, above me on screen is my team. We have built out an entire operational second brain for me because I have so many businesses, the podcast, this personal brand, all of my
Right.
consumer products brand. And I'm like, if you can build out a complete dashboard that operates everything I do to make things more frictionless, then we'll go from there and we'll offer it to other entrepreneurs and business owners. Because for someone like me, they're like, well, how do you do it? How do you keep up? And
Right.
so many people that are in the world of education, they say, oh, well, we have great processes, we have great teams. And that's just all bullcrap too. Because at the end of the day, you're always going to drop the ball somewhere because there's only so many hours in the day, especially if you care about quality of life. So for me, I think AI is the great leveler. It levels the playing field from the haves and the have-nots because it's almost free and you can do a lot of damage building something specific to a pain point you find and then be able to go out and sell it as a service or exit the company for very little money. Because remember, going back to custom silicone bracelets, when we built a website back then with a shopping cart in 2003, it was like $15,000, $16,000 to build a website with a shopping cart. Now you can come up with an idea, you can get your URL, you can get your social media handles on all social media platforms, you can build a website, and you can do all of it for $100. So when people come to me and they say, well, you're already rich, that is why it's unfair because I'm broke and I got to work 2 jobs. That's just a lack mentality and a victim mindset because it has
100%.
never been easier than this moment right now that we're talking today. Never been easier to build wealth. There are a million tools out there. I'm like a kid in a candy store, and I'm much older than a lot of your listeners probably.
Yep.
I love it because I always stay ahead of all of the trends and all of the secular growth trends. And that is how I've done so well over the years because rather than fear the unknown, I like running right into it. And that's why I started buying Bitcoin. I almost launched a Bitcoin exchange when Bitcoin was 7 cents. I got talked out of it, but I started buying Bitcoin at $7 when all my rich friends said I was an idiot, that it would never be legal. And now here we are. Bitcoin's going to end up being $200,000-$300,000 a piece. So I think everyone listening to this show needs to really understand, don't run from it because you'll never outrun it because it's here to stay. Could we have bubble moments in the AI sector? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, AI is here to stay, and the efficiencies that come with it offer so many opportunities.
Such great advice. It's not, like you said, it's not going away. It's something that everyone has to get on board with. How do you, you mentioned staying ahead of the trends and trying to be one step ahead. How do you do that?
Because I think most Americans stop learning by the year 30. They're 30 years old. They're married, maybe unmarried. Luckily now the big trend is people are studying wellness. They're getting in shape. They're doing all these things, but they stop learning about things that can level up their life aside from their health. And I think the key for me is, and people like us that continually learn, is that you understand what's coming instead of sitting back and I've got my job, I've got my wife, I've got my dog, I've got my cool car, maybe I have my weekend boat, I'm set. When you stop learning and you stop educating yourself, I feel like it's just a death sentence to your future dreams because workforces change, just like right now with humanoid robotics. A lot of people that are in jobs that are monotonous are going to get replaced. And unless they get ahead of it and learn a new skill, they are going to be in that universal basic income stage that's going to happen in 5 years because they didn't stay ahead of it. So I think it all comes down to having the will and the desire to educate yourself continuously. I don't remember the stat, but it was something crazy. Like 64% of people never read a book after 34 years old. And I believe it's probably accurate. So many people, you go to their homes and you go to the, I'll go to people's houses. I don't see a book or a magazine in the building, and I know we do everything online now, but I feel like we still have a lot more cognitive memory and function around reading. So I have tubs and tubs of all of my notebooks. I still have little notebooks that I travel with, and these every day, every meeting, everything, even though I have an AI note taker on every call, all of that, because I feel like I learn and retain the information better by continually learning.
So really your method of staying ahead is really just, continuously learning, right? Continuously being, and it's really about remaining curious, right? Remaining curious about what's happening. Not thinking you know everything and you're the smartest kid in the room, just continuously improving. So
meet and partner or hire the smartest person in the room,
right?
Because that is the key. I learned a quote 35 years ago from an older gentleman, don't remember his name, and it changed my life forever. And it was, you have to be in it to win it.
Right.
I met him somewhere. Maybe it was at our restaurant. He was talking about how I was constantly moving and I was constantly trying things. And back then when I was like 21 years old, people thought I was nuts. Here I am getting my finance degree, working at a car dealership, working at our family's restaurant. Like I was everywhere. And this guy said to me, he goes, "You're going to be a winner." He goes, "Never forget you have to be in it to win it," because so many people go to conferences, they read books, they do all these things so it sounds cool at a party, but they don't do anything with it. You have to execute with the knowledge you have rather than continually just learning without execution. You're not going to go anywhere. So I think it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What great advice. Let me ask this. What did Silly Bandz teach you about the difference between having a great product and building a great business?
Yeah, I think you have to build a great business, especially now, and you have to build a story and you have to build a community, because at the end of the day, you can have the best restaurant, the best law firm, you can have the best landscaping business, you can have the best consumer product, whether it's a olive oil brand or whatever it may be. You can have all of that and have an incredible product, but if you don't have eyeballs, you're going to fail. So I think for me, it's about looking at yourself as a marketing firm first and a product company second, because I've failed with products that I knew were good, but we just couldn't figure out the marketing. And so now my internal team grows by the week. We have ninjas that just do YouTube, ninjas that just do clipping. We have somebody that is an expert. I hire people, and instead of making them utility players now, I condense them down and say, you need to be the best as you can, the best of the best in digital marketing, and that is your job. I don't want you to just do digital marketing. I want you to understand the ultimate ins and outs, because the algorithms change quickly, so you can be the best of the best. And that's the key for me, is being able to get people to do that through my employees and everyone that works with me. And so I think it's just critical. You can have a great business. And I met with a guy a couple weeks ago. He has an incredible product in the bike category. Really great guy. They have a family business, and they are losing money, even though they solved a huge problem for people that ride bicycles. And there are millions and millions of people. The total addressable market for this is huge, but they don't know how to market. They literally took the girl at the front desk that answers the calls and does the invoices and said, "You're our marketing person now." This girl She uses Instagram, so they think that's marketing, and that doesn't work. There's too many tricks of the trade, and you have to know those tricks to get the eyeballs. And once you get the eyeballs, then it's a lot easier if you have a great product.
Yeah, I mean, attention is the new currency now. So
It is.
without attention, you're gonna get left behind. And it's
You are.
I saw this recently. I forget who it was, but it was the ethos of, you got to entertain the masses, educate the interested, and sell to the committed. I think it was Adley who said that on Rich's podcast, and it's so true. Like, for someone who's building a personal brand, trying to sell online, trying to make it out there, they're not on the app to learn about your business venture, right? They're on the app to really be entertained, right? Catch their entertainment first, then figure out if they're interested, then sell to them if they're committed. I want to hear a little bit about your challenges. You mentioned some challenges, mentioned some failures. Instagram and social media it's all about rosy pictures and everything's going great. What are some challenges that you've had along the way?
I mean, the challenges are pretty much always going to be the same for small business owners. It's going to be cash flow to be able to grow without giving too much equity away. I see a lot of people now where they don't even have the idea storyboarded and they're raising capital, which is crazy to me. Learning to hire to your weaknesses and not to your strengths. I see a lot of entrepreneurs and founders that I meet with. They hire all their friends and the people that are going to say yes to them. I think I've always been good at hiring people that are good at what I'm not good at rather than what I'm good at, because you don't need a bunch of yes men and women around. So I think that would be number 2. And then I would say number 3 for me is understand that a lot of people get this wrong, and they tell you, follow your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. I promise you that is a quote that is coming from rich people. Because
who have already made it.
That's right. They've already made it.
Right.
The number 1 hill I live on is don't follow your passion early on. Figure out how to get money. I don't care how you get it. If shoveling dog poop paid enough, I would have done it. Because at the end of the day, when you're early, your whole goal should be get money, get it invested, build your base to get to that $100,000 saved and invested, get your Roth IRA set up so you can make all the mistakes in the world, but you still got money compounding for your future. So many people get it backwards and they go, oh, I saw this thing on Instagram, I'm going to go do this. And then they build it, it fails. They borrow money, it fails. Then they go build something else, build something else, build. I would rather people be entrepreneurs on nights and weekends, but have a day job to make sure the lights are on, you can pay for your cell phone bill, and you can grind your face off on nights and weekends until the money you make from something that's working outgrows the money you make from the job. And even then, I would keep the job a while longer, because that way, there's nothing worse than trying to chase a dream and then you have to figure out how to pay your cell phone bill. And the biggest mistake people make is they want to go out and chase their dream because they keep hearing over and over for decades, follow your dreams and you'll never work a day in your life. And it's just not correct. I followed my dreams many times early on and they failed, and I would end up going back and finding a job. Luckily, I was always pretty gifted, so I was successful early on. But for most people, keep the job, have a steady income, build the dream on the nights and weekends. That would be my last take.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I kind of learned that lesson in law school because I was taking classes that I enjoyed and not getting good grades, rather than taking the strategic classes that would give me the A's so I could increase my GPA.
And to go back to what you mentioned about what Adley said, I want to linger on that for a second, because I think it's important for everyone right now, because if you go to anyone's feed on Instagram or TikTok, everyone is an expert and everyone's an educator.
Right.
If you do these 5 hooks, you'll go viral. If you do these 10 things, you'll get followers. Understand, before you follow every single trend and everything that everyone else is doing, understand one thing. If the ultimate goal is to build a personal brand so you can sell your goods, whether it's legal advice, real estate advice, you have a candle business, whatever, if you don't carve your own path, you're not going to sell anything. I see influencers all the time that have hundreds of thousands of followers and they make zero money. They don't get
Right.
brand deals. They don't have any real customer base or community. It's because they're creating entertainment and they're not monetizing it. And
Yep.
I'm totally fine if you want to be an entertainer on Instagram, TikTok, and on social media, and you know how to monetize it. That's fantastic. I know people that are friends that make millions of dollars a year through different ways of monetizing entertainment on the internet. But if you want to build the eyeballs to be able to convert those people to community members and have a reason, a thesis for it, then I wouldn't follow every single trend, because then you're going to end up cooking your audience and you're never going to turn it into anything. And then people just burn out because they have followers. They don't have fans and customers.
Very true. It's funny. I just kind of started this social media journey 2 years ago.
Yep.
And when you start using it for business purposes and you start turning followers into leads, you realize that this is just a gold mine but once you figure it out, right? Once you figure out how to actually do it, which it took me, I've paid mentors, I paid for courses. It's taken me a long time to kind of figure out how to press the right buttons and use it the right way.
Yeah, as long as you don't do what a lot of them do, and this is the biggest mistake, if you're out there doing this, stop it. Sell all you want to your base as long as you provide value, because that's the biggest mistake. I see so many people, they build an audience, all the value goes away, everything's behind a paywall. If you do both and you give tons of value, they want to support you. And I think that's the biggest differentiator that people mess up, is all of a sudden you'll see somebody that you've been following for a long time and you'll be like, wow, they don't really give value anymore. It's just a sales page. And if you turn your entire page into a sales funnel, I think then you cook your audience pretty quickly. So just make sure you always remember to provide value, because they'll support you if you do.
Great advice, man. That's great advice. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of before the Silly Bandz craze, right? You grew up in Toledo, right?
That's right. Toledo, Ohio.
Did you have any mentors or anyone teaching you about managing money or wealth when you were growing up?
I was very fortunate because I came from a broken home. My dad left when I was 6. My mom left when I was 10. I was kind of left to the wolves. It was a really brutal childhood, but I was always just really smart. I had no mentors. I had no parents around. I was very fortunate, even to this day, that one of my best friends was my cousin, Tim Croak, and he's the founder of Croak Capital, and that's our family's office, and he's wildly successful, a great motivator and mentor for me. And he always was there for me because he came from the good side of the family. I came from the tough side of the family. So you didn't really have mentors back in the day. You had libraries is about as far as it went when you were a kid. Nowadays, in 3 seconds through ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, whatever you use, you can get the most complex problem solved in under a minute.
Right.
Back then, no matter what you were trying to do, you had to figure it out. You just had to learn by fire. And so to learn something back then many times took years and years to learn. Now younger people have the ultimate situation because everything's at their fingertips. And so anyone that fails now, I don't care what your backstory is, broken home, violence, it doesn't matter. If you're living and breathing and can find an internet connection, you can get out of that situation and become successful. So for me, it was a rough go for many years. We don't have to get into the details, but I was very fortunate because I wanted to graduate college. And so I went to college for a business major. Then I went into finance, and I thought I was going to stay in finance, but I just had the entrepreneurial bug. I wanted to build things. That's just how I was built. And even though Tim tried to talk me into staying in the financial world, I always stayed as an investor back then, but I was definitely an entrepreneur first. Probably the smartest move I made was at 19 years old, I opened up a brokerage account and I started putting, back then, I think it was $20 a paycheck. So $20 every 2 weeks. And I built that from there. And then once I got the job in finance at 23 years old and I was doing all that, I used those funds to buy a fourplex. So I practiced what I preach. I lived in one unit.
Nice.
And I rented out the other units. And I ended up owning that property for over 20 years. And it was a huge cash cow for me.
So you house hacked.
I house hacked in the beginning. That's why it's so funny right now. I tell people, thousands and thousands of people, I'm going to go buy my dream home at 24 years old. I'm like, don't do that. Even at 34, don't do it. Go house hack. Use the Fannie Mae 5% down mortgage or the 203K loan or something of that FHA. Use one of those programs so you keep your money invested. Get a house that you can live in one unit for a while and rent out the rest, and then use the funds from that, the cash flow, to buy the dream house later. So many people want to rush to home ownership, and then their equity is tied up, they're illiquid, and they don't have anything invested. I don't think anyone should buy any assets of like a house or a small business until they have $100,000. That's the hill I live on, because I always want to make sure no one goes broke on my watch. And if they can dig and grind and scratch to get that $100,000 saved and invested, keep it simple, get, VOO, QQQ, maybe AIQ, SCHD, something like that. If you can do that, then no matter what goes wrong, I'll always know that they have that $100,000 growing over time. So that's the hill I live on with everybody.
That's amazing. Yeah. Great advice, Robert. And, I just love that story of, kind of just where you came from, because a lot of people in that situation would just give up.
Of
right.
course.
Or they would let their circumstances and their environment just get the best of them, and they would let life just run them over rather than taking control of of that life and making something of yourself. You hear a lot of arguments out there about, hey, it's, your environment. Yes, your environment impacts your success for sure, but also so does how you respond to that environment. Was there a moment in time when you were growing up where you were like, okay, I could either, go down this road, or I could make something of myself, and I'm not going to let my circumstances get the best of me?
Yeah, it used to be the joke when I was in high school, because I had a very violent, terrible life at home. And all my friends, we joked when I was in high school, and they were like, you had to have been switched at birth. And it was funny because I grew up in the east side of Toledo, and, it was not fun. But I always knew I was destined for greatness, and I just had to figure it out. So, and I think right now, the biggest prohibitor of building a successful, financially free life is the mindset. That is why you see so much content from me and stories from me about people crossing over and getting out of that lack mentality and that victim mentality mindset. Because I could have easily called it in, became a car mechanic, worked at a construction company, lived in East Toledo, and been that guy. But I was like, this world, that is not what's meant for me in this world. I'm going to figure it out. So I never had a moment of quitting. I just don't have it in me. That's why it's hard to beat people like me, because I don't quit. And I've had many, many bumps in the road along the way. So anyone listening, please don't think it's been all rainbows and unicorns for me. I promise you, I have had a very, very long, difficult path to get to this podcast today. And so I think it just comes back to mindset. If you believe that you can do it and you never give up and you have the tenacity to keep going, you will find your way. And I'm living proof of it. I remember when Silly Bandz hit really big, they made it sound like I crawled out from under a rock and got really lucky. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. This moment of success came from 15 years of grind and trying things and hustle. And I had all these other businesses that made it or didn't make it. I made a lot of money in the bar business with bars and restaurants. Construction has always been good to me, all of that real estate. But it was not always easy, and it was not this up and to the right that people nowadays think you get when you become an entrepreneur and become successful.
Yeah, it's like what they say. I mean, what does Hormozi say? Like, if you never quit, you will eventually make it.
That's right. If you learn from it.
Right.
I don't look at any setbacks as mistakes. I learn from them as a way to attain more information to know what to do next. And I think Hormozi's right. Alex does a good job with those mindset moments to get people to understand it's never easy. Even now today, as we film this, I've been dealing with crazy hurdles to get to the next level of some of our businesses and some of the things we're working on. And it is never easy. You just have to have the willingness not to quit.
I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody was telling me they love getting no's. Like if they ask for something, they get a no. They love it. Like, yes. I'm like, why do you love getting no so much? Because I'm that much closer to yes. You know, how does one go from feeling depressed and sitting in their house and feeling like they're never going to amount to anything to like putting on a, you know, getting clean clothes on, putting on a suit and going out there and trying to make something of themselves?
Your habits today dictate your future. And I think for the average person, they have to find the motivation. I don't care where it comes from. They have to find some piece of inspiration. Maybe they watch a video of mine and it triggers them. And they're like, well, screw this guy. He's already rich. What does he know about, you know, struggle and strife and all of this stuff? Trust me, I know. And most people that make it out from that lack mentality and that victim mindset, they find a moment where enough is enough. Maybe they went out and got drunk and did something stupid and they ended up in jail with a DUI. Maybe they played too many video games and laid around on the couch watching football too much on a weekend and their wife left them or their girlfriend left them. Whatever it is, they have to find a moment that they determine, because no one else can do it for them, they determine is the rock bottom moment that they're going to make the change. And many times it's very simple. It's getting in trouble, not having money, ending a relationship. That is that moment that helps them go, oh shit, I've got to make change. And so if you combine that moment with finding motivation to be able to make the change, then I think it's pretty easy and it just takes time. It's like going to a gym. You can cheat a little bit to build a great body because, you know, we have a lot of really cool things out there that people take to build big muscles and all that. Right. But for the most part, you cannot buy a healthy body. You have to earn it. And the same thing comes with education. The same thing comes with success. People in my comments all the time say, I got lucky. Happens all the time.
Oh,
a
wow.
guy yesterday commented, he was in a suit in his profile, looked like a perfectly normal 45-year-old man. He said, why should we listen to this guy who got lucky selling rubber bands to kids? And I was like, okay, if you want to deduce my success down to that type of response, I triggered you. And if I triggered them, that is a good trigger. And so I think you just need that moment of motivation to find your way out, because it is very easy to go get a job, start drinking on nights and weekends, get caught up in watching everyone's success by doom scrolling and watching sports all day long. And I think it's easy to get caught up in that, and it's comfortable. The biggest way to get out of it is to be uncomfortable and be inspired and go educate yourself how to make change.
Yeah. I actually just posted something about that because I had that moment back when I was in college, and, you know, I was going down the wrong path, doing wrong things, doing stuff that I knew it's going to lead me, you know, to living under a bridge somewhere. And I had that same moment of literally, okay, I saw the fork in the road very clearly. Kind of like what you're saying, I can live in Toledo, be the guy working at the construction company. I thought to myself, I don't want to be that guy. And that was a motivation enough for me to get my act together and get with it. So let's talk a little bit about the Rich Habits podcast and what your goal is with that, and kind of the psychology of wealth, which we've been talking about. And I think you are one of the premier financial educators in the space. What made you want to get into providing that education?
Yeah, my life changed before the Rich Habits podcast. I was at an event. It was an alternative summit event. And I met an incredible gentleman that everyone listening knows. And he said, why aren't you doing anything with your personal brand relative to business and finance? And he said, your brain is 600 miles ahead of everyone else. You should share it. That moment changed my life. So I started doing content instead of just for fun.
Right.
And at that time, I had a very small following, like 8,000 followers on Instagram, and I had like 50,000 on TikTok. I took it seriously, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this thing and see how it works. And I didn't do it crazy. I didn't do 15 videos a day. I tried a few videos and it worked. I went very, very viral, I think, by the third video. And that video went on, and I think now it's got like 40 million views and like 1,000,005 shares. And it was a life-changing video for me. And then I got a DM from a guy, Austin Hankwitz, and he was like, I love what you're doing. We have a 30-year age gap. I've always wanted to do a financial education podcast, but nobody's going to listen to me. At the time, he was 27 years old, I think.
Okay.
He said, nobody's going to listen to me, but they will listen to you because you have an awesome backstory. Can we do a call? I said, sure. We did a call. He pitched me on the podcast. We had no name. We had no nothing. He said, I think we should start out. He said, but I want to make it clear. We're not going to make any money for 1 to 2 years. And I just need to make sure that you understand this will be a heavy commitment for you because I know you're busy. I was like, all right, let's try it. So we came up with the name, Rich Habits Podcast. We did all the branding. We got it all figured out. We get started. And basically what we did in the beginning is we would just write my viral TikToks and Instagrams, Reels, and we would take those and turn them into episodes. And nobody listened for the first 15 episodes. You know, we get a couple hundred views, whatever, but we stuck with it. And then I don't remember how many months in, but it was very early on. We had an episode that really went viral, and we went #1 in the toughest category. This is against Alex Hormozy, Patrick Bet-David, Dave Ramsey. We went #1. And then since then, we've been #1 so many times, and we've stayed in that top 10 or top 15 for years now. And that's without an advertising team. We don't do any digital ads or marketing. And I think the reason it's so incredibly important to me, and I know it is for Austin, everyone out there has blind spots. I don't care how much money you have or don't have. Everyone has blind spots when it comes to how to build a stress-free, meaningful life with financial freedom. And financial freedom can take a very long time for most people, but my goal in life, and I've been very, very fortunate to be able to do it every day now for years, is to educate people en masse to be able to help them figure it all out. Because there's a lot of people out there that have a 2.5% mortgage, but they're making double payments on the mortgage because Dave Ramsey says so. That's a huge mistake, a glaring mistake. If you can borrow money for less than what you can make with it and arbitrage the positive difference into your accounts, that's what you do. So I literally just take all of my 40 years of experience in real estate, businesses, consumer products, all the things I've built, I deduce it down in a way that the average person can get nuggets from it every time they hear my voice. And it might take 5 times for them to get annoyed with me about a TikTok or something that I put out there. But at the end of the day, they're going to learn from it because I don't do clickbait. I don't follow trends. I do what I think is going to help move the needle for the most people. If I wanted to grow a lot faster on the internet, I could just start doing clickbait every day like a lot of people do, and I would grow faster, but my value proposition to people that follow me would greatly reduce.
Let's finish it off with, in closing, we're going to kind of do a rapid fire rich habits round, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, first thing you would do with $100,000.
First thing I would do with $100,000 is I would probably leave that saved and invested, and every new net dollar, I would start taking small asymmetric bets on pre-IPO companies or real estate deals that you can get into.
All right, rent or buy?
If you're just getting started, rent. If you're up and running and you have your base built and you're stable and you're investing a good portion of your money, 15% every single month, net household income, buy.
Stocks or real estate?
I don't think it's an either or. I knew you were going to do this to me. You have to own both. I would say you should own stocks first and not individual stocks. Let's clarify. I think everyone should start out with ETFs. We talk about it all the time, these funds like VOO and QQQ. Start with those because then you're not picking individual stocks and you're letting the professionals. Soon as that base is built, then start looking to house hack and get into real estate.
Entrepreneurship or high-paying career?
High-paying career at first, and then build the entrepreneurship on the side so you can take your time and you're not struggling to pay your bills.
Pay it off the mortgage or invest?
You should always invest and not pay off extra payments or pay down your mortgage as long as your mortgage is under 6%. If you have a 2, 3, 4, 5% mortgage, I would not make extra payments because you're more than likely going to make 10, 12, 15% in the markets. And that way, that positive arbitrage of 5 or 10 difference goes into building your wealth rather than paying down a lower interest mortgage.
All right. What about college today? Worth it or not?
I don't think college is worth it unless you are going to get a degree that is going to be worth it in 5 to 10 years. You know, there's an old Wayne Gretzky. We're going to go back to the old hockey days of Wayne Gretzky when he was asked why he is the greatest hockey player of all time. He said, because I skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. And I love that quote because I think that's how people need to think about money and education. Don't go get a degree today that's going to take you 4 years to get. And then in 5 years, it's going to be worthless, but you still owe $100,000.
Right.
Don't do that.
I'll tell this quick story. When I graduated from law school, I had $160,000 of debt. My monthly payment was $1,000, and $990 of it went to interest. $10 went to principal. After law school, I started a business. It was a staffing company for families that have kids with special needs, and it was very niche. And I was working on it nights and weekends. I was putting ads on Craigslist. I built a website through Squarespace. I was going to families. And I had my background's in social work. I actually have a bachelor's degree in social work. So I had a little bit of credibility. And I remember going to the family's house and I was doing an intake and it was $100 for their application. And they gave me a $100 check. And I thought to myself, I just made this out of thin air. You know, I just had an idea, executed it. So I ended up making $20,000, $30,000 a year through this business. And I put it all on the student loans and paid it off in probably 4 years. What is one thing you refuse to spend money on?
Chasing trends until they're proven to actually make a difference. You know, I talk to people, hundreds of thousands of people a week see my message, and I tell them because, you know, I see so many people. As soon as a trend happens, whether it's cold plunge, red light therapy, whether it's peptides, whatever it is, they go all in and they'll spend $500 a month or buy a red light therapy panel or a cold plunge on a credit card for $4,000 without even knowing, does it actually make a difference? But I'm more of a, hey, show me this works. I want to know it makes a difference. So the ROI of that money really works for me. I want people to make sure one thing happens in their life. Make sure your money works as hard for you as you work to get it. And that doesn't start with buying every supplement and every trend you see on the internet. It's just, for me, it's not financially sound.
Yeah, that's great advice, Robert. You know, you've made the money, you've built the business, you've had massive success with Silly Bandz and other products. I mean, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What still excites you? What are you still chasing?
I would say what gets me out of the bed in the morning is this right here. I don't know how many people are watching this. I don't know how many people are going to actually watch this episode all the way through and be like, wow, I'm going to take something from that episode and it's going to change my life. You know, I do these one-on-one calls to coach entrepreneurs and help people with their finances and all this stuff. People cry on these calls because they're like, you've changed my life. I've been following you for years now, and you've made such a huge difference. And I think that's what makes it so exciting for me every single day to do this, because it is a ton of work. And it's just the fact that even if I change one person's life a day and that compounds on itself, I might change a husband's life or a wife's life, but then she tells her sister, and then their kids start watching the Rich Habits podcast, whatever that may be. It's being able to take all of my wins and losses and be able to put a forum together that helps people be able to get the information for free or as close to free as I can possibly make it to help them in their future.
All right. So Robert, if you could sit across the table from the broke, ambitious, young Robert Croak in Toledo and tell him one thing about the life ahead for him, what would you tell him?
I would say the most important thing for anyone facing that scenario is, one of my favorite quotes is, proximity to power does not mean you possess it, but it sure helps. And so for me, I would say, move away, get out of the hood, get out of the crappy environment, get away from all the broke people that are bringing you down, and start over. I would move to a warm climate where you are near the power and the money. And if you're 18, 19 years old and you're broke, I don't care what that means. I don't care if you need to live in your car for 6 months. I don't care if you need to crash in an apartment with 4 other people. You need to get where the energy, the power, and the money is and absorb it all. So if I did it all over again, I would move to a place like St. Petersburg, Florida. Yeah. I would live in the cheapest way I could possible. I would get a job at a country club in a nice restaurant. I don't care if it was doing dishes or being a ball washer, and get around those people and show them that I have diligence and drive and hustle, because people will notice. You'll be able to gather enough data over those few years to be able to be in a good place. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, on the East Side. It was gloom and doom. There wasn't a lot of opportunity. There weren't people there that were going to bring me up. And I stayed because I loved my hometown. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be the guy that's going to bring everyone up. And so I think it is proximity to power. Get in an environment where you can thrive if you put in the effort.
Amazing advice, Robert. Thanks so much for your time today. If people want to follow you, find you, how can they do that?
Yeah, at Robert Croak on Instagram, at Robert Croak Official on TikTok, and at Rich Habits Podcast everywhere. Follow the podcast on Spotify. That's our biggest platform. And that's it. I'm everywhere, and you can find me anywhere, but just make sure that you only follow the real accounts, because there are hundreds of fake accounts of me, and that's always tough to deal with. I have a blue check mark everywhere, so it should be easy to find me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Robert.
Thank you for having me.